So you know the Coupe de France, big thing, metal, French. Well, for me, it is the greatest club cup competition in the world. Because where else in football do you get a mix of insane upsets like 4th tier Calais going on a miracle run all the way to the final in 2000 to just recently Lyon being dumped out by 5th tier side Bourgoin-Jallieu? Throw in the fact that over 8,000 teams enter each season. Just for context, the FA Cup this year had 745 entries. Genuinely, where are they finding this many teams? Like, I know it's cliche, but we must be talking dog and duck here. Or I guess chien et canard. Not to mention the fact that teams from French overseas territories are allowed to enter and regularly reach as far as the 8th round. A fabulous recent example of this is the exploits from the 2019-20 edition of the competition, when a side from Réunion by the name of JS Saint-Pierroise beat a 4th tier side, then a 5th tier side, then amazingly a 2nd tier side in the form of Chamois to make it all the way to the round of 32, before they then fell to a 4th tier side called Epinal. Less said about that the better, but you just do not get that from other cup competitions. So all this got me to thinking, could I take the FA Cup and bring it up to this level, or even better? Yes, the answer is yes. So what monstrosity have we cooked up to make all of this work? We call it the Emirates FA Cup. You were expecting a big name reveal there, didn't really think it needed one. But what makes it so different, I hear you ask? Cowering, terrified of change? Well, on the surface, nothing. But under the sheets, it's a whole new ballgame. For you see, it is now open to entries from club sides from any of the Commonwealth nations. Of course, the 56 nations of the Commonwealth that now have access to this tournament, at the time of recording, are all fully fledged sovereign states. This makes it a lot more fun for us as the team standards from these nations is likely to be a lot higher, which means there's a lot more chance of them going deeper in the competition. And that's just more fun. Club teams from Australia to Zambia, from Malta to Malawi can all enter. Every nation in the Commonwealth has at least one entry per season, with Scotland, South Africa, Canada, Ghana and Nigeria all getting 2 entries, and Australia getting 3. Because big. Each team is chosen at random from the top flight of each of those nations to prevent it from being the exact same teams every single year. Give it a bit more flavour. Nobody wants to see Rangers and Celtic be in it every single season, except for maybe Rangers and Celtic fans. Now, originally the plan was for them to be staggered in over a few rounds, but unfortunately, due to the way that the FA Cup is coded, things you can't even change in the editor, that wasn't even possible for Emperor of the Editor, Hadrian, to make happen. And this means that they all enter at the second qualifying round of the tournament, and due to yet another quirk of the way that FM works, they for some reason cannot be drawn against each other. But you can see that the FA Cup second qualifying round will be drawn in September here, and just looking at the A teams in there, Aberhany, Abia Warriors, Adelaide United, AFC Dunstable, Aberdeen, ABM Galaxy, Adwa Stars and Alfreton Town. That's just some of the A's. So while them not being able to play each other does mean that there's a chance that they could all get knocked out in the second qualifying round, it's very unlikely. These changes are honestly so slight in many ways that you could legitimately run this database file alongside your main save and not have any real issues with it other than some extra fun in the FA Cup. That is until you forget about it entirely and your 7th tier English side is drawn away from home in Bangladesh, and your finance department then have to start selling the paint from the seats in order to pay for the round trip. Nevertheless, I'll put the database file in the description anyway, so you can download and have a little go with it yourself. One question you might be asking yourself, and to be perfectly honest with you, has only just occurred to me as I'm recording this, is what happens if one of them wins the English FA Cup? Do they get a place in the Europa League via England? And the honest answer is, I don't know, but I really hope we find out today. In fact, I'll make it my mission to find out, because if it doesn't happen naturally, I will make it happen at the end and we can find out. So let's get into this season, see how it all works, and of course after that I will go miles into the future and we can see if anything crazy has happened. Right, so we've actually had the draw now for the second round. You can immediately see, obviously there's a lot of like non-league sides in here too, but there's also a lot of sides from logos that you don't expect. And this is once again using that incredible trick that Hadrian found, where he can pull teams in from different countries without them actually having to leave their domestic leagues, as you can see from the fact that, well, Adelaide United here from the A-League are comfortable playing in the Emirates FA Cup, that they are still playing in the A-League and in the normal Australian tournaments. And I suspect they'll be playing for a little bit longer as they've drawn Weymouth, and that feels like the type of game they could potentially win. Not to mention we've got Renown versus Mercham. Now Renown are from Sri Lanka. Some other big ties in here, Kelantan FA versus Truro City, the big one. We've also got Forge FC from the Canadian Premier League against Stotfold, who I'm pretty certain featured in my random Champions League video last year. Not to mention Rangers versus Tamworth. No doubt you'll be seeing crazy ties in here that I'm completely missing as well. South Shields versus Paphos, Polokwane City against Grays Athletic, Aberdeen down. I love that it was randomly drawn, but somehow we still got Rangers and Aberdeen. One last one here. We've got Nomads United of New Zealand against Yate. So let's get through a couple of rounds and you'll see how this works. I wouldn't be surprised if an awful lot of these guys actually progress through here because there's some pretty good sides in this round. So here we are, just looking at some of the results from the third qualifying round. I thought we'd skip ahead a little bit because I don't want to waste your time. So the Abia Warriors of Nigeria absolutely clapping Barnstable, and a team just simply called Gorilla, who I've never heard of, but I'm really glad I now know about them. Most important thing is they're through against Nico United of Botswana, an all-African tie. At least the travel costs would cut down a little bit. Polokwane City through again as well. You can see there's a lot of teams coming through here, including Lincoln Red Imps actually still going from Gibraltar. So a lot of these teams will probably make it to the first. The question is whether anyone will get to like the third round, but we're, well, I guess about to find out, aren't we? So we actually joined the first round in progress here, but a lot of things have definitely happened in that. For a start, we can see that Real de Banjul have already gone through against Tampines. A good progression for the Gambian side with an Estonian manager. Unfortunately, the same can't be said for Abahani KC of Bangladesh, actually, because AFC Wimbledon quite literally did have to do the away trip that I was talking about at the start of the video. But they got a 6-3 win, so it's okay. But still more progression for the likes of Supersport United, Western Sydney Wanderers all getting in there. End of the line for a few teams such as Paphos, but incredibly, Gorilla progress. This is wonderful news. Gorilla into the second round of the FA Cup. This is the story I didn't know I wanted. See, we are losing quite a lot of other teams in there too, as Adelaide United do manage to get through. Forge do get through as well. Aberdeen actually go out to the MK Dons. That's an unfortunate tie. Few ties haven't yet come to pass, such as the one here featuring ABM Galaxy and Ultragam of Vanuatu. Wow, they've done well to get through. Beat Broadbridge Heath, Bright Stars, and then Southend United. Oh, God, that probably is the final nail in the coffin for Southend. That's a hell of a scalp for a team from Vanuatu, I've got to say. So the third round is now set, and you can see we have lost most of them. This won't happen every year. It will vary on the teams that actually do get through, of course. But Adelaide United will play Arsenal in the third round of the FA Cup. Arsenal making the trip down to Australia for that. God, I hope there's not a replay. Larne, having got all the way through, will face Luton Town as well, though it does genuinely appear that it was quite literally, on this occasion, only those two that reached the third round. In some of my tests, it goes a lot better than that. See, the second round didn't go amazingly well. Larne did manage to get through themselves. The Western City Wanderers went out to Newport County. Tampines went out to Carlisle United in the second round. Gorilla beaten 5-2 by Hollywood FC. You hate to see it. So many other teams they could have got there, but we say goodbye to Gorilla. Point is, you get the general idea. Most of these guys aren't going to go that much further, but there's still a very strong chance that they will do in the very long sim, because crazy things have happened, hopefully, especially as I do have the detail level on the FA Cup set to maximum, so when it was simming it wasn't just randomly picking results, although that may have actually helped us in a way. So it's June 2129. Don't know where I got 130 years from. I think it's just because we were close to 2130, but either way, it's over 100 years of history that we now have access to. I hope to God we've got some good stuff to find. But let's dive in. I guess the first thing to do would be to look at past winners and see if we've had any crazy winners or at least some crazy finalists. I'm not expecting the crazy levels of chaos that we've had in some of my other videos because at the end of the day, they are still fairly subtle changes and they do have to compete with the English sides, which is just simply not easy, is it? Well, Norwich are in there, but that is not the chaos we're looking for. Right, past winners, show me something good. Show me anything good. Oh my God, it's just a sea of, Pompey, but it's not what we're looking for, Matt. Right, slowly scrolling back. If you spot any, let me know. Cardiff there. I just want to see some random team get to a final or something, or win it. That would be tremendous. Oh, it's just nothing, is there? It's just nothing. England's really difficult, isn't it? None of them have even reached a final. This took me 2 days of simming. Incredible. 2 days of simming and not one of them. 100 years, nothing. It's fine. There'll be stories within, he says, hopefully. Hilariously, Light Stars have actually lost 20 consecutive matches, so they seem to have gotten it quite a lot somehow from the Seychelles. Must be one of the two teams that could have been drawn in. It's not gone well for them. Celtic actually scored 42 goals. If it's going to be someone, it's most likely to be Celtic, Rangers, or one of the teams from the A-League, probably, that have gone furthest, I suspect. Shout out to the fact that in the very first season, a 48-year-old scored a goal against Bath City for Toga Fuafua. The biggest victory in the history of the tournament is actually Hibernian versus Hyde in 2069. Nice. That's a weird one, though, because it's just Hibernians. Most team goals, of course, was Celtic a few years ago, but Mamelodi Sundowns got 37. I guess when you start in the early rounds and you can hit like 5 or 6 goals a round, it kind of helps. Top scorer ever was Tobogo Mofokeng of Cape Town Spurs. Cape Town Spurs! Shout out to them. Anyway, I'm going to dig in and try and find some guys that have gone very deep. Well, here we go. So first one I found immediately, Orlando Pirates of South Africa going to the semi-finals in 2025, only to be beaten 4-0 by Bournemouth. But there we go. Semi-final appearance for Orlando Pirates. 1 point for South Africa. Imagine if that was the only one. Aha! Another one. This time it was like 50 years earlier, but Rangers lost 6-0 at Wembley to Tottenham. So actually, only 2 teams so far have, I've just realised that... That's a... What? Sunderland got to the semi-finals of the FA Cup while playing in the 6th tier. That's not even relevant to this video, but what? Obviously, we can't see the match report. We'll be investigating that in a minute. Absolutely wild. So in the 100 years of simulations, only 2 teams, Rangers and Supersport United, I think it was, right? No, it was Orlando Pirates, right towards the end there, have ever reached the semi-finals. The Sunderland thing is crazy. I'm just going to look through the quarters as well to see if there's any crazy nation teams that have got quite far too, and then we'll investigate the Sunderland thing, because that is... what? Celtic got to a quarterfinal against Arsenal in 2038. Dundee got to a quarterfinal and were beaten by City on penalties. Finally, something kind of crazy. Canadian side, York United Football Club lost to Fulham in extra time in the quarterfinals. Biggest surprise I've been able to find at the 5th round, this is the deepest I'm going to go, is Mount Pleasant reaching all the way to the 5th round before losing to Plymouth. Bear in mind, these guys are from Jamaica. That's a hell of a run. That is truly an unbelievable run. Beat AFC Sudbury, then Merthyr, then Oldham Athletic on a replay, then Blackburn Rovers in the first round 5-4, Hartlepool in the second round, Preston in the third round after a replay, then Port Vale after a replay and penalties before going out to Plymouth in the 5th round of the FA Cup. That is insane. Shout out to them. That was legit it, which I think actually in a way makes the teams that did go as far as they did even more impressive. For me, Mount Pleasant is probably the most impressive of the bunch, really, when you consider that it's a Jamaican side. The league isn't even switched on. What a run they've had. Anyway, what you really want to see is probably what happened to Sunderland, right? Because they've been all over the shop. Obviously played mostly in the Championship, had some seasons in the Premier League but didn't do particularly well, but you know, had some consistent Premier League seasons at least playing there. Didn't drop out of the Premier League until, well, when did there we go. Finally started dropping into League 1. That was only 30 years ago. Then back to the Championship again, back to League 1, League 2, National League North. Right, okay, so they've just been on an absolute hiding to nothing. The lowest finish in this time was 13th in National League North. Turns out I'm a bit of an idiot, because apparently FM shows the league that the team is currently in and not the league they were in at the time, which I've only just realised that's really silly. Or it might just be my save file messing up. Sunderland weren't in the National League in this save. They were actually in the Championship. Tell a lie. No, they weren't. They were just a Premier League side. I just got excited about a Premier League side getting to the semi-final of the FA Cup. What's the stupidest thing you've done today? And the thing is, I know some of you would have figured that out way before me and would have been yelling at me about it, so I do apologise, but nobody's perfect. Right, so that didn't exactly go to plan, but let's answer that final question of whether a team could get into Europe by winning it if they're from one of these nations. Okay, what I've done is I've basically made Adelaide United unstoppable, hopefully. If they lose to Arsenal here, it would be extremely funny. The only other team I could have done would have been Larne. Problem is they're already in Europe and might end up just qualifying anyway, but whereas we know that if Adelaide United get into Europe, there's something wrong. So now all their players kind of look like this. This should be enough to beat Arsenal. God, I hope it is. Second stupid thing I've done during the video. So I've just got Adelaide all the way to winning an FA Cup final, only to realise that I could have just looked on the rules page when it literally says winner qualifies for the Europa League phase. Exclusions. Error body that isn't from England. I'm sure Adelaide United are in there somewhere. Could have just looked on the rules page. Who would have thought it? That took me like an hour. Anyway, the FA Cup has surely still been made better for this, and I'm very happy with that. Even if we didn't get the crazy winner that we would have liked, that's just somehow FM, how it goes sometimes. And, well, when you're a low-quality individual like me, you just mistake things like that. So if you have enjoyed this video, drop a like. That'd be fabulous. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. That'd be glorious too. I've got another video coming out in a couple of days as well. We're just kind of rolling with things now. Anyway, see you guys soon. Hold your gun. Capybara. Bye-bye.